right, so we're live. Welcome, everyone. Um, Welcome to Keep This in Mind, the show that I do on a regular basis with some of my good friends, and sometimes I decide to monologue. Lucky you. Just kidding. In fact, it's a lot of what I do is teaching, and I wanted to share with you today something that really is um, hitting home for me lately, and maybe um, you can relate to it. Let's say that today I want to talk about a habit that can wear us out before anything bad has actually happened. It's called catastrophizing. It's when your mind takes a situation and it usually uncertain, not a lot of facts, and it creates a story about what's going to happen, what is the circumstances, who's going to get hurt, what your plan should be, because for whatever reason, our brains take it to the darkest, worst conclusion. For instance, you feel a weird pain and you're like, oh my gosh, do I have cancer? Oh my god. And don't Google it for sure, and not AI and all those things. But you feel a pain and all of a sudden your brain says it's something really, really bad. Are you maybe you hear a little tick 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 in the car and you're like, oh Lord, there goes the transmission. Or maybe you make a mistake at work. Maybe it is something that you've caused, but now you're just like, oh, I'm gonna get fired. You see, catastrophizing is not just worrying, because worrying asks, what if something goes wrong? Catastrophizing is saying, it probably will. And here's all the bad things that will happen, and I can't handle it. That is the part that really matters. You see, the real damage is not that we imagine something bad. The real damage is that we start believing outcomes before anything ever happens. And I want to be clear from the beginning. I'm not talking about legitimate emergencies. I'm talking; those are real problems, real issues. If something really bad happens and your brain is thinking of all the steps to to get that squared away, that is not catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is believing with very few facts that the very worst is about to happen or could happen. So, here's an example. Let me get a drink real quick. I don't fly much, but I do fly on occasion. And can I tell you, until that plane is in the air, I'm imagining all the things that could go wrong. I'm looking around the inside of the cabin, seeing where the exit rows are, saying if this thing crashes at the end of the runway, I'm going to do this. If we don't get off the ground, I'm going to do that. And it's almost paralyzing. While other people are introducing themselves, some I know this world where we're not quite as friendly as we once were, but as we're settling in, I'm getting more unsettled. Now, as soon as that plane takes off and we're reaching cruising altitude, the anxiety comes down. But here's the thing: facts are limited, but my story in my head is not limited at all. I am creating an entire narrative with virtually no facts to a detrimental conclusion. And that's what catastrophizing really is taking the smallest fact and adding so much to it, mostly negative, but adding so much to it that we create this narrative of catastrophe. Now, when you do that, you're no longer responding to life. You're trapped. You're trapped in your own thoughts. Yet we often make excuses. We say things like, "Well, I'm just being realistic. You know it could happen." But here's the thing: realism looks at the facts. Catastrophizing looks at fear and calls it facts. And in leadership, catastrophizing can be the death knell to your business because when you see one letter come in the mail from the IRS, or you see one past due notice, or you see a low bank balance, or you miss a goal, all of a sudden the catastrophizer says, well, this is just the first step in a long, slippery slope of problems. And a lot of times, instead of addressing the problems and finding all the facts out, they just curl up and ignore, they overreact, they get angry, and it spills over into other areas of their life. The truth of the matter is that life has up and downs. There are facts that we get hit with every day. But when we are faced with very little data, those of us who tend to catastrophize will often go too far into the negative. Let me tell you what's true. A bad day is not a failed life. An awkward conversation is not a ruined relationship. One slow month is not a dead business. One mistake is not your identity. One setback is not the end of the story. Here's another example. I know someone very close to me who is used to working from home, and their bosses, there's two of them, their bosses decided that they were going to rent a workspace and call everybody back into the office. And the catastrophizing began. They were spun up. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is not what I signed up for. Oh my gosh, we're not going to have enough room. We're not going to be able to hear. We're not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to get anything done." Have you heard these responses before? And it's not just, "Oh, this might be a little difficult," or "I got to deal with it," or "There's going to be some adjustments coming." It was always, "This is terrible and it's going to get worse." But guess what happened? One of the two went into that office. One of the two said, "Oh, it's not as bad as I thought." You see, catastrophizing is a liar. It takes such few facts and adds fear to it and creates a lie. Now, here's the beauty of all this. And this is why you want to listen today. If you haven't listened to anything else I say, this is what I want you to listen. When you begin to recognize your catastrophizing tendencies in yourself, that is the first step to freeing yourself. Because catastrophizing, remember, I can't tell you how to feel, I can't tell you how to think. What I can do is tell you how to respond and react to those thoughts. And the first step is recognizing, oh, wait a minute, I only know this, and now I'm starting to add to that. When you start that way, you then can take that step back. I had a mentor that says you can't see the picture from inside the frame. Sometimes we need to take a step back outside of the frame or have someone help us see outside of the frame to be able to take in the whole picture. Now, the first step is naming it when you start doing it. You begin to say, I'm catastrophizing. I'm spiraling because I'm catastrophizing. Don't say I'm crazy. Don't say I'm weak or I'm just a worrier, or just say I'm catastrophizing. That creates that little bit of mental separation to let you know, hey, I'm noticing what my thought process is. Being able to take that step back brings a little bit of peace inside the storm. to be able to think a little bit more logically, to think a little less emotionally, a little less fearfully. Now, the second step is to ask yourself, what are the actual facts? What do I know for sure? What actually happened? What has been said? What has not been said? What evidence do I have? What evidence am I missing? A lot of catastrophizing will collapse when it has to stand next to actual facts. Because the catastrophic story is they are mad at me, they're pulling away from me, this relationship is changing, I probably did something wrong. The fact is, you haven't gotten a response yet. And the story is everything you added. Now, the story might eventually prove to have some truth in it, but it's not a fact yet. And treating it like a fact will make you anxious, reactive, and possibly unfair to the other person. Step three, ask this question: what is another possible explanation? What is another possible explanation? You've created one based upon your catastrophizing, but what is possible? What is another possible explanation to the very limited fact that you have in front of you? Back to the lack of response situation. Maybe they didn't respond because they're busy. Hello. I wonder, I got my phone back here. I wonder how many people, when I have to hit that send a voicemail button because I'm in the middle of something, think that I'm mad at them. Maybe they didn't respond because they were busy. Maybe the meeting was tense because everyone was tired. It wasn't tense, it was we were all tired and we were checked out. Maybe the client hasn't called back because they're still deciding. Oh, he's ghosting me. How many times have I heard that? No, maybe they're not ready to give you an answer just yet. Maybe they're not rejecting you, they're dealing with their own stress. Look, let me tell you, as a business owner, there are some great opportunities that I see that I simply can't afford to participate in. And I want to, but I can't. Maybe the problem is real, but it's not as large as your fear says it. And the fourth step, and this is where we'll close today, a lot of things are possible. Is it possible your worst case scenario could happen? I'm not going to say no, but is it probable? Okay. And if it's probable, is it manageable? Because catastrophizing usually tells two lies. One, they say the worst thing is likely. And the second lie it tells you is that you can't handle it. You get a letter from the IRS. Let's use that as an example. Catastrophizing says, oh my gosh, they're going to put a lock on the door. I'm going to lose my house, where they're going to lose everything. But the truth of the matter is, more times than not, whatever you have to deal with the IRS, they want to deal with you. They don't want to own your house. They won't want to own your business. They want you to pay what everyone believes you should pay. So next time you begin to catastrophize, I want you to begin to reframe how you identify it. Instead of saying this is a disaster, say this is a problem. Instead of saying I always mess this up, say I did not handle that well this time. Instead of saying nobody cares, just say I feel really unsupported right now. And instead of everything is falling apart, say this part is difficult. You see, it's not semantics, it's not wordplay. At the end of the day, it really is you taking responsibility for where your mind is, what your reactions are, and how you move forward. Because as long as you continue to catastrophize, you'll continue to be paralyzed from all that you have been called and want to do. I hope you enjoyed this live. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, guys. Remember to follow me on social. Go to elevatesuccesspath.com, go to leadership.davidaspeck.com, and remember, applied knowledge is power. God bless.